Everybody is losing their minds over the Minnesota Twins. The Rangers think their offense is fixed because of 2 blowouts in 3 games. Jonah Bride has become one of Rocco's go-to guys in the bullpen. Bailey Ober can't stop giving up home runs. Twins Twitter is ready to sell Twins players and its soul. Someone even sent Bailey death threats. Has the world gone crazy? Maybe a long time ago. Hang on, but not too tight, because everybody needs to get Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to source for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Imperial Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe where applicable. I'm Dave Brown, an MLB writer who sometimes feels like death because of sinus infections. Across the great plain of cyberspace is Brandon Warne, whose haircut is nothing to sneeze at. Brandon was a Twins fan who became a Twins writer, and now he's both. Once again, you can find our work at Access Twins and Zone Coverage. Seriously, I have a post on there. On the show today, Twins pitching has been so bad that the Rangers, who came into the series with one of the worst, if not the worst, offenses in the league, now thinks everything is okay. I saw a bunch of tweets about, is the Rangers offense fixed? Well, glad the Twins could do that for you. With Pablo out of action for months, Zebby out for weeks, and Bailey in a tailspin for who knows how long, what do the Twins do now? Ober, incidentally, also says he got death threats amid one of the worst starts of his career. He allowed 4 home runs in a 16-3 drubbing by the Rangers. Some fans have no shame. Ober has significant other issues to work out right now, and he doesn't really need to be dealing with people giving him death threats. Was making gambling on baseball widely legal a mistake? Was the internet a mistake? Was humanity a mistake? We explore it all. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. That's pretty good math. I like that. That's good. That's extra good money. So Brandon Warne, has anybody ever threatened your life?
Just my mom when I was misbehaving, but I don't think she was serious.
And maybe you had it coming.
But I did have a line that I thought was funny. It was Texas 16-3 said, I just whooped your ass, like the opposite of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Austin 316.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Texas did do some whooping on the beloved Minnesota Twins. I can see why somebody might freak out and then express themselves on Twitter in that way, given I saw a tweet from Declan Goff. Twins on track to lose their 3rd game in 7 days by 11 runs or more. That's not good. It is good for Jonah Bride, who's getting a lot of work in on the mound. But it seems like not everything is falling apart all of a sudden for the Twins, but the starting pitching issues are real. How concerned should we really be after the initial shock of these 16-run Jonah Bride knuckleball games wears off?
I feel like a 6.5 out of 10 is probably fair. And honestly, a good point that I saw was that Chris Paddock is one of your most relied upon starters for length, whatever, is probably not great. He's already thrown nearly as many innings this season as he did all of last. He's never thrown more than 140 and change, and that was his rookie season, which was 6 years ago. So it's concerning because Joe Ryan isn't immune to a blow up every now and then. He'll have stretches where he gives up a homer or two. But with that said, the offense is hitting better this month. They're 5th in OPS since June 1st. So maybe there's some awakening there. And so it might just come down to if you can get 5 from a starter on any given day and give it to the bullpen, at least to weather the storm, pun intended, because it's raining here today quite a bit. They can weather the storm till Zebby comes back, or they can make a trade for not Aaron Civale, then things change a little bit. But Ober is the concerning one because he's more or less healthy. Like, he's dealing with, I think, some things that are bothering him. But that's going to be the case for a pitcher all season long. They're going to have aches and pains, creaks and cracks. And he's got bigger issues too off the field, it sounds like, which is horrible, absolutely horrible. So I would say my concern level with this rotation right now is about a 6.5. I think that's probably telling because I'm usually one of the last people to hit the panic button. And I'm still thinking like, yeah, I don't know what the idea is or the plan, but you need more than just Simeon Woods Richardson getting his butt kicked every fifth night and Bailey Ober amidst the probably worst stretch in his major league career.
Well, looking at StatHead, which is a baseball reference, you can look up every start that any player has ever made, for example, and it was the fourth worst start of Bailey Ober's career. Only the fourth, I think, and the reason it was only the fourth worst was because Rocco had to have him go 4 2/3.
How many of the other three above it were in Missouri?
Yeah, 2. And 2 of them are this year. One of them was the Cardinals game early in the season. One of them was his first start last year against the Royals. And another one was against Minnesota last year, 8-26-24, when he gave up 9 runs in 2 innings. I've memory hold that one, but it wasn't good. This was bad because career high in walks, 6, career high in home runs, 4. The good news, there's good news. He was throwing harder. He was like in the high 80s for his 4-seam fastball for a while, for much of his last few starts. He was at 90 and a half or so miles an hour average 4-seam fastball, which is up close to his average for the year, but still not as fast as he was throwing last year. Right. He was up, I think 4-seamer last year was 91.7. So, I mean, this is degrees here, but the way Bailey Ober gets by, the way he sometimes dominates, is that difference between, one of the things is the difference in speed, the interval between the 4-seamer and his changeup. And when they're too close together, or they're not going fast enough, or some combination therein, he's going to give up home runs, and that's one of his issues. Now he says he's had this hip thing, which is led to his mechanics being off, or the mechanics being off led to a hip thing, or maybe they're feeding each other. I don't know. Rocco says it's not an injury of any kind. Maybe Rocco is in denial, but that's not the issue. The issue is still Ober's mechanics. Now I don't know if his speed is like getting back is like the first step to him having correct mechanics again, but at least there's that. That's like the bit of good news. And he also, you alluded to it, and we've alluded to it in the graphic, the issue with death threats online. And I can tell you, I know what the culprits are. One, it's social media, where people will say lots of things that they wouldn't say to your face, especially someone who's 6'9", 250 like Bailey Ober. Yeah. And 2, there's a wider acceptance and availability of gambling, which that's what gets people upset. Not that Bailey Ober had a bad game for my team, the Minnesota Twins. It's that some dude lost $1,000 or whatever on the sport and is taking it out on the pitcher. The Athletic just came out with a story that isn't about Ober, but it's about how the players are sort of under siege these days from more and more fans who are, giving them death threats, or at the very least being really obnoxious about bad performances. And it relates to the individual losing money on gambling of some kind. So it's just one of those things, you're not going to get rid of it for a couple reasons. One, because people gambled on sports before. Right. And 2, it makes sense for Major League Baseball to cash in. I don't even know if I begrudge them 100% trying to cash in on that side of fandom, because they should get some money for it. It shouldn't be up to someone else to make money off the game if the players aren't getting a cut, or even the owners whatever. I know they're billionaires, but it's only right. What they do need to do, what they definitely need to do, and I don't know if they've thought of this, because it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't. They need to protect the players more somehow.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that yet, but Major League Baseball is definitely responsible for that part.
So I have 2 points to counter further before we go into break. I think with Ober right now, it's a case of hurt versus injured. And the difference is it's like command and control. Hurt means there's just something bothering you. You can play through it, but it's a nagging issue. Whereas injured, you have an actual physical limitation that prevents you from playing, or at the very least significantly hampers the quality with which you play. So I think that's what's going on in some respects. And then when it comes to this gambling, or what we believe to be gambling, I think it is degenerates who have no sense of emotional regulation. I mean, look at the average baseball fan upset when a player doesn't slam their bat or helmet when they strike out, or that Rocco doesn't come out and lose his mind on the umpire every time they blow a call. That's just terrible emotional regulation on the part of that fan. You can't come out and lose your mind after every call. And I've played ball with guys who, if they get it called out on a bang play at first base, act like they're, someone kicked their dog. It's part of it is knowing the situation. If you're playing a game and there's one umpire behind the plate, you're going to have some calls missed. Part of it is baseball is a game of failure, and some of us weren't brought up understanding that or accepting that. So you throw gambling in that mix, and there's no doubt in my mind that's why it's such a volatile situation.
All right. Well, we are going to take our first break, and there's some irony in that. And when we do, we'll talk more about the Twins and their troubles.
Well, hold your irony for just a second here. I think I might have given you the wrong. No, I didn't. Yeah, I did. I gave you the wrong bit. Let's be real. Coffee isn't just a drink, though. It's a ritual, a lifeline. It's the thing that gets you from half asleep to fully functioning. Here's my favorite coffee mug. I don't know if you can see it on the. There we go. It's got my hometown on it with a bunch of.
It says something. I know. I can't really read it, but
it does say something. Lovely. It says that coffee is essential, and if it is essential, like it is for me, why settle for anything less than amazing? That's where Trade Coffee comes in. It's the #1 coffee destination in the United States, delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. So whether you're a cold brew fan, pour over, or anything in between, they are going to get you a roast that you're going to absolutely love. And not the kind of roast like me on Twitter with some of my nemesis, but a roast of coffee that's going to absolutely delight you and suit your palate quite well. I took the trade quiz. It only took me a minute. And the first bag they sent me was spot on, had the notes that I like. It was the right roast. It was the right light versus dark. You name it, they found it. And it was pretty amazing. It was fresh, first of all. It smelled great. And it ruined grocery store coffee for me. I can't go to even Target or even the big places, Costco. I can't go and get coffee there anymore. They've ruined it for me, which is fine because, it's coffee and I need it to be its best for me to be at my best. Now, right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customers 50% off a 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/LockedOnMLB. That's TRADE as in nice trade, falvey.com/LockedOnMLB for 50% off a 1-month trial. Again, drinktrade.com/LockedOnMLB.
Coffee. Locked On Twins is back for Friday the 13th.
Oh Friday boy, I didn't even notice. No Jason in the Twins lineup, so that's a shame.
No Jason. Tyner was Jason. No, Jason.
Kubel, Repko, Tyner.
Jason Kubel. Yeah, it was the Tyler of its time, maybe.
Yeah,
in the early O's. So a couple things I alluded to it before. Rocco saying that, and you saying this, it's not an injury. You dummy with Ober's hip. But Rocco, I wasn't born. I wasn't born yesterday. I was born actually in the morning at 9:15 on a Tuesday.
Same. Not 915, 532, but same.
Yeah. Bad hip, bad mechanics leads to injury upper body with pitcher. I mean, maybe not every time, but it could. They got to get Ober's mechanics figured out, or he is going to get hurt.
I hate to suggest this. Sorry to interrupt. I hate to suggest this because I don't think it's true, but you naturally wonder if this rotation was healthier, would they have put him on the IL by now?
I don't know. If it's not an injury, I mean, it depends, I guess. I'm not, and I don't even know if he has any options or whatever, but that's not really the issue. It's getting the mechanics right. I don't know if it means a bullpen stint or yeah, but they can't do that now. The way things go, have gone here with the innings. I just thought that was a little. I mean, I don't. We complain about people complaining about Rocco not flipping over tables, but don't tell us that it's not an injury or it's it isn't a concern in that sense. Because it should be if it isn't. Anyway.
And maybe he's protecting his player like managers do.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, sure. We'll give him that. We'll give him that. I lost my place. Ober's velocity is up. Walking people is not something that he's done a lot of. Getting burned by home runs. That is something that has kind of crept in a little bit from time to time. So there really isn't an option for somebody else to pitch. I suppose they could go to Andrew Morris or somebody else in AAA, but really it is something that apparently Bailey is going to have to work out, on the mound and on the side and kind of minimize it. I just hope that he can kind of get to it too soon because Pablo Lopez, we're looking at maybe August 1st, maybe not that far, but something like that. And sometime around the All-Star break, maybe for
Zebulon
for Zebulon Matthews. So it is kind of funny how quickly things can kind of blow up.
There's no answers that are close. It's all far away. And that even could be the case if you consider the trade deadline, which the problem is if you weather the storm for the next 6 weeks and get to the trade deadline, your guys will be back and maybe it'll be too late if you stop winning ball games. And at the same time, though, outside of a guy demanding / asking for a trade, as happened with the Brewers here just before we recorded, it's hard to find a team that wants to flip anybody of any consequence at this point in the season. And a lot of times too, teams are hesitant to do that as well. They're hesitant to trade for guys and give up prospects. Like if the Twins had traded Luke Keeschel for Eric Fetty, like we kind of heard they thought about or had offered and it didn't get accepted. I mean, how does that look if Luke Keeschel is playing as he did for the Twins in a different uniform and Fetty I think he's been fine, but not great. I don't know.
I mean, he would be helpful now, but yeah. Well, you think? I mean, we talk about people overreacting to anything. They'd really. I mean, if Spencer Steer had sort of kept going the way that he was, I think he's kind of regressed to the mean a little bit ever since he kind of got off to a hot start after he left. But if Luke Keeschel hits like we kind of think he's gonna, and he was doing that for somebody else, people would be losing their minds. So since the last time we did a show, the Twins have made a trade. We didn't talk about Jorge Alcala leaving. I don't believe.
Right.
And that was for a Class A prospect, which is pretty good. I remember him from the play that got back from early in the season because he had a really funny bat flip in April, and it was like a major league. He threw it so high in the air, I can't believe it didn't come down on the umpire and hit him in the head. I've seen that happen before too.
But it was in the camera frame of the fly ball that was hit to win the game, and all of a sudden you see the bat pop up in the bottom, like Carson McCusker-esque for sure.
Right, but this guy doesn't have. Carson is like 6'8", so he's already like up in the air.
Right.
But so
head start literally.
So there've been a couple of. It's not like, the Twins. We talk about how they're probably not in a position to get a major league player like Alcala in a starting form. So Aaron Civale was traded too yesterday by the Brewers.
Earlier today.
It's a weird trade. It's with the White Sox. It actually makes sense. For the White Sox. I actually think it makes more sense, for the White Sox than it does for the Brewers. I'm not sure, Andrew Vaughn was not hitting very well in AAA. It hasn't been that long since the White Sox sent him down. But I was afraid for the White Sox that he was going to get hot and they'd bring him back and they'd send Tim Elko back to the minors and bring back Andrew Vaughn after a couple weeks. They never the White Sox did him wrong. There have been lots of stories about Vaughn's lack of preparation. I've heard people on other athletes complain about how, when I was with the White Sox one winter, Vaughn would come in and he wouldn't, he'd be more interested in playing golf than he would be hitting the cage and working on his game. And that wasn't the first time you've heard stuff like that. But he was a first round pick, 5 years ago, the COVID year, I think. And the White Sox really didn't, they weren't in a position really to give him much of a minor league. Nothing in 2020. And he started with the White Sox in 21. He basically almost like Pete Incaviglia, if you're going back that far. And his lack of, he started out well and then he regressed. And it showed that maybe he didn't have the quite the proper development by the White Sox. So, I think they kind of did each other dirty a little bit along the way. Maybe they both could have prepared his career better than they had. Yeah. So that's kind of the Brewers are trying to buy low on him, I guess. Civale is a guy. Civale, wasn't he traded for Manzardo? Wasn't that the deal with the Rays?
Yep.
So kind of, a similar trade in a mirror darkly a little bit on the other side for Vaughn, a guy who is well post hype. I don't know if he's ever, and even if he does play well, I'm not sure how much value there is with him. He's not going to have huge power.
He's a first baseman.
He's a first baseman without Pete Alonso power. He doesn't walk like Frank Thomas. He's not a good defensive player.
But who's in his way right now? It's like Jake Bauers. So he's got a shot. It's an organization that'll give him.
He's got a shot to play, but is he going to move the needle? I don't know.
Even if he does, what is he? Jesus Aguilar, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, that would be okay. He couldn't. Jesus Aguilar.
Jamon Choi. I'm trying to think of other.
Aguilar couldn't sustain it, but he was kind of entertaining at least. Vaughn doesn't really do that even. They have a prospect in the minors. His name's slipping my mind a little bit, but a Cuban prospect who's really, I think he's AA, maybe he's early AAA. But the Brewers have a first base prospect who they could bring up, and he got love in spring training and lots of attention. And I'm not sure like how he's doing or that I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't say that he's in the way, but that's a guy that Vaughn might put him in this prospect's way. I don't know. Civale is a guy who
Jesus Caro, Jefferson Caro.
No, it's not. Civale's a guy who could help the Twins at this moment, for sure.
I thought so. Yeah.
Could the Twins have? I don't know. The Twins don't really have a Vaughn to trade, but would they have traded somewhat of substance? It's risky and tricky if you're Falvey, especially with the same old business with ownership and Vaughn's. Making a lot of money too, arbitration eligible kind of thing. That would be, an issue.
Well, why don't we do this? Let's table this for 1 second, do our last ad, and then we'll come back and talk about Civale because I thought he'd be a good fit. But first, we got to talk about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are coming to an end. 2-1 lead for your Indiana Pacers, my Indiana Pacers, who I've adopted because I just can't stand the idea of Oklahoma City winning anything. But they've been delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, one more game in Indiana before they shift on back to OKC, and lots of can't-miss moments. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton has been at the forefront of pretty much all of it, all postseason long. But whether it's a game-winning shot, a breakout player, or whatever it is, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And by the way, how could a $200 bonus add to the excitement? Because if your first $5 bet hits and you're a new customer, they're going to hook you up with $200 in basically free play. Again, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Locked On Twins is back. Ernesto Martinez Jr. is the name of the Brewers prospect at first base who it was thought maybe in spring training would come up and help them at first at some point. So that's the guy whose name I couldn't think of. But Aaron Civale is a guy that the Twins could use certainly as a bridge to later, if nothing else. He's a free agent at the end of the year. So, he makes a little money. And, he's a guy who's been in the rotation for the guards, fell out of the rotation with the Brewers. It's funny when the Brewers have too much pitching.
Yeah,
but they still do, even though they let Burns go and some other people
Woodruff
got hurt and Woodruff is hurt. And but I don't know, I don't think they could have traded like Sabato for him. Is that the closest thing to Vaughn they have? Is that interesting to the Brewers? I don't know.
Speaking of, he just got promoted to AAA today.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be a similar caliber player, but I also think too the Twins would want money coming in or going out, and that might be part of what made it palpable. I mean, not that either the White Sox or Brewers are as budget focused as the Twins seem to be right now, although Jerry's always kind of been that way, right? I think money in, money out would have probably been the preferred way for it to happen. And honestly, I don't know what Civale's personality is like. He got sent to the bullpen and decides he wants a trade. This is not exactly a guy who's a super duper great player that should feel that disrespected. I don't know. I mean, it would be like if the Twins sent SWR to the bullpen last year. I don't know. Maybe that's
a little. I think Sabato, or I think he's a little. Civale is a little more established than SWR. So, like I said, he's coming up in his free agent season. It's a matter of money. He's, I think I don't think it's so much ego or whatever. It's that, I'm coming up on my free agent season. I need to show teams that I can make 30 starts a year. Yeah. I think that's what it is. It's a self kind of preservation thing. And he kind of went out on a limb a little bit. And he got traded to the White Sox, which of course everyone's going to make fun of. And the White Sox should be made fun of. They should never live it down. But I will say this about what they've been doing lately. It's kind of anti-tanking. They tanked hard, and it was such a success that they didn't get the first pick in the draft this year.
10th. They picked 10th.
Because you can't get a top 10 pick. So 3 years in a row or more than 3 years. I don't know. They've been too bad for too long.
Yeah.
So, getting Civale, if you want to look at it cynically, they can flip him at the deadline. They could do it in a month.
Yep.
They could, or 6 weeks. They could do that, or they could keep him around and having someone a decent starter rather than some Yahoo on the mound. No offense to the company, helps the development. I maintain of the younger players that they do have. It helps people like Kyle Teal and Miguel Vargas and whomever else.
Which is nothing to say of the guys that they don't throw in there to be not ready to pitch.
Yes. You are not using someone that you shouldn't be using in a major league game to start or whatever, using them out of sequence or in volume or whatever.
Bob Tewksbury on some really bad Twins teams in the late to mid-ish 90s. Not that, but I mean, they were still racing guys to the big leagues. Frankie Rodriguez, and I mean, he's the one that really stands out to me. Live arm, but just no. LaTroy Hawkins, no business in the major leagues at their level of maturation as pitchers. And so you got guys that, I mean, Kevin Correa was that guy in 2013, to protect Alex Meyer, whoever it was back then.
Yeah. So I don't want to say that like the White Sox have turned it around, whatever that means, but how they are going about things makes a lot more sense for the long term and even the short term than it did a couple years ago. So
no doubt.
Good for them. Good for them. But bad for the Twins that they didn't have a chance to get Civale. I don't know that it's just because they didn't have the trade capital they wanted to trade. Maybe there's other sinister poll-ad reasons, but that's the kind of guy they could probably use right now. So,
yep.
On that note, we want to thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So, for my friend and confidant Brandon Warne, I'm Dave Brown, wishing you all a very pleasant good evening and saying that we will Alexei Casilla tomorrow night.